Hello and welcome. I'm Tara. I garden here in Zone 5 in central Iowa. Today we're going to talk about selling wholesale versus consignment, and I think some of my reasoning will surprise you. I put out a video a few weeks back about the easiest way I thought you could sell cut flowers. And in that video, I touched upon selling consignment versus wholesale. And I've received some questions and feedback, so I thought I would put together a short video that dives a little bit deeper into the subject. Now, I am going into my 5th year flower farming. I have been selling by consignment the majority of the time throughout those 5 years to various small boutiques, and I have been recently getting into grocery store selling. There have been a couple of occasions where I have sold wholesale to some small businesses. So I wanted to break down what each of these means to me as a flower farmer and how I have found each beneficial. So let's start with wholesale. Now, I know out in the flower farming world, the literature and the comments that I've read most often say that flower farmers should either be selling wholesale or retail and that consignment is a bad thing. So I'm on here today to dispute that a little bit and tell you a little bit about my success selling consignment. Before I do that, let's jump back and talk a little bit about wholesale. Generally, when you are selling wholesale, you are selling your product approximately 50% below the retail price. So if you have flower bouquets that are selling, let's say a wrapped bouquet for $20, you're going to generally sell this wholesale 50% lower. So you would be wholesaling these bouquets for $10, so the retailer that you've sold it to can mark it up to that $20 price point. Now there's some variables in here and some variances. I have heard sometimes flower farmers aren't willing to go 50% and they might be more comfortable taking home 60% on a wholesale price. So that $20 bouquet, rather than selling it wholesale for $10, they might be selling it for $12 or somewhere around there. I have done this in a couple different situations. I have had several small boutiques and other stores in my area reach out, and they have maybe been doing a big pop-up or an open house, something at their shop where they wanted to drive a lot of business over a week or a weekend. I had a couple reach out and they wanted to buy 10 and 12 bouquets just to see how it did in their store. Now, since I didn't have a relationship with the owner and I wasn't familiar with how popular their store would be or that event would be, I was more comfortable selling wholesale. Now, I did sell them, I believe, what I would call a $20, $25 bouquet. I sold them for $15 each. That meant the owner, the one wanting these bouquets, paid me the full amount for the flowers up front. And then when she had her event, any flowers that didn't sell, that was on her. On the flip side of that is consignment. So when I think of consignment, I am taking all of the risk. Anything that doesn't sell is going to be on my side for the expense. I have found this to be a very effective way to talk to small business owners. You go in, you do your sales pitch about your fresh flowers, and then you bring up consignment and you let them know whatever your percentage of consignment is. Generally, I have sold at a 15% or a 20% consignment, meaning when I sell a bouquet, the business takes that percentage. Larger businesses I have seen are generally in the 20% range. There was one small boutique that I was really interested in getting in and being a part of that she took 30% of my sales. To me, that was too high on consignment. If I were to do business with her again, I would suggest that I would sell them to her wholesale versus that high percentage on consignment. Some of the smaller boutiques who are used to working with perishable goods have given me a percentage of 15%, and I really think that is hard to beat. For the examples that we'll talk through in a bit, I'm going to use 20% just because it's an easier number mathematically. But as you're starting to think about this, if your bouquets are $20 bouquets and you're selling them on 20% consignment, that means you're going to be paid $16 for every bouquet that sells. Now with this situation, there's definitely some risk for me. Very, very little risk on the seller because I'm doing all the work and I'm taking the risk. So I think a great way to approach this situation is I would love to see if this works for both of us. If I am selling most of my bouquets and I'm already know that I'm happy with that percentage consignment, I'm going to do some marketing for that business. So that is a plus for both of us. Hopefully they could do some marketing for me as well to draw some more people or maybe some new people into their place of business. For me, that price point is comfortable. And so when I am putting together my bouquets, since I know the retailer is going to be selling them for $20, I use that as my parameter of when I'm putting the bouquets together. But if I'm going to go on the bigger or smaller side of things as far as the number of flowers in my bouquet, I will generally go a bit on the smaller side, knowing that my profit for that bouquet is going to be $16 rather than the full amount of $20. The other big selling point for me for consignment is that it is such a low risk situation for the retailer. It's been very easy for me to walk into a business, introduce myself. I like to bring a bouquet to kind of show the client or the business owner what I'm planning or what I would be planning to bring in. And then I kind of give them what I call my sales pitch. So I'm going to have the product ready to go, wrapped in water, or, we can kind of talk through if they have pricing stickers, they can give them to me in advance and I'll have those all ready to go. I can use my own setup as far as buckets, or if they happen to have some sort of flower stand, I'm happy to use that. But I am driving the bouquets to the location. I'm doing the setup. I'm doing the presentation. I will usually not let my flowers sit more than 3-ish days in the store because I want the customers to get the flowers when they are the freshest. The flowers that I grow don't need to be in a cooler or anything like that, so they're generally just sitting out inside of a temperature-controlled building. So the end of my sales pitch is anything that doesn't sell at the end of that 3 or 4 day period, I'm going to drive back to your store. I'm going to pick them up. I'm going to clean up the area. And generally I'm bringing in a new group of wrapped bouquets. So anything that doesn't sell, I am taking away and I'm refreshing your stand. Now, of course, you do run the risk of not selling the flowers that you're taking. If I'm taking 20 bouquets a week and I'm only selling 10 of them, for me, that's not worth it in my opinion. Now, someone brand new, just trying to get your name out there, it might be slow a little bit in the beginning and you can concede to maybe the first month or two, I'm not gonna sell the majority of the flowers, but in order to move forward, definitely need to be selling the majority of the bouquets that you're taking in. Now for me, I typically bring anywhere from 10 bouquets a week up to 30 bouquets a week, and I am expecting that 80 to 90% of those bouquets sell. So if I'm taking 20 into a store, I don't want to be picking up more than 2 or 3. Now, as you sell more at that store and throughout the year, you're going to notice some lulls. I always have a lull after the 4th of July until maybe the second week in August. It's always slow. I always question myself. But what I've been able to do now is I just bring less bouquets, right? Instead of bringing 10 or 20, I'm only bringing 6 or 10, and I'm still selling the majority of what I'm bringing. I think setting up the selling model as consignment is a great way to build trust and loyalty with a small business owner. As I said before, you are taking the risk, and of course, if it's not working out for them or for you, it's a pretty easy commitment to get out of. Generally, you're not signing any sort of contract or anything like that. You can just have an open conversation with the business owner and say, I really needed to be selling a little bit more, a higher percentage than I have been, so I'm not going to be able to continue this. Or maybe you could phrase it as, while I can't continue to do this on a weekly basis, I would love to bring flowers in quarterly and do some big promoting around it. Or maybe flowers sold really well in the spring, so you just want to focus on maybe that shoulder season. To wrap up today, I wrote down an example just to kind of compare wholesale to consignment pricing. And for this example, we're going to talk about bringing in 10 bouquets at the $20 price point. If you did this at the wholesale price of 50% and you sold all 10, you would be bringing in $100. So keep that in mind. Let's compare that to consignment. Let's say you took those same 10 bouquets that are $20 retail in on consignment. For simplicity's sake, let's say the consignment percentage is 20%. So if you sold all 10 of those bouquets, you would be making $160. That's $60 more than what you would have made wholesale. But to make this more realistic, let's say instead of selling all 10, you only sold 8 bouquets. If you sold 8 bouquets at that 20%, which comes out to $16 per bouquet, you're going to bring home $128. That is still a higher amount by $28 than selling at the wholesale price. So for newer growers, I think this is a great option, as well as someone like myself who I have built some contacts and a little bit of reputation in our area now. For me, I still think this is the way to go. It's such an easy sell to set up consignment. Again, the risk is on me, and as long as I am selling the amount that I feel is worth my time, it's really a no-brainer. Now, I know a lot of people out in the community have a different take on this than I do. So I would welcome comments and maybe arguments, positive of course, down in the comment section about why you prefer to sell wholesale over consignment. And of course, retail is also an option, which I think is a great option. I do sell some things retail, and I'll be doing a video on that a bit later. Thanks everyone. See you next time.